Hello and welcome to Lost Within Lost, the podcast where we are re-rewatching the 10 highest rated episodes of Lost. My name is Dan, and my controversial Lost opinion is that The Constant, while an entertaining piece of television, is not even in the top 10 of Lost episodes. Put that in your pipe and smoke monster it.
Hello, my name is Chris, and Dan, I'm going to need to see that list.
Yes, speaking of the list, we're up to number 9. So number 9 on the list is Man of Science, Man of Faith. That's the season premiere for season 2. And of course, if you want to see the top 10 list in full, you can either go back to our first episode where we went through the entire list, or you can just go to IMDb. They have a list as well.
Yep, that's the one where we are following.
Yes.
But pretty consistent with all the other lists out there. And of course, I think, and our socials will post the list there as well. So Man of Science, Man of Faith, the first episode of season 2. But before we get there, it wouldn't be a Lost podcast without a previously on Lost, Within Lost.
Previously on Lost.
Within
Lost.
This is an opportunity for any corrections and follow-ups and things. Nothing so far. I don't think we've tripped over anything so far, but I did want to note in our journey so far that Dan worked for Mad Magazine, and that will be important later on. And where I was in life when this show started was working in a factory, punching the clock. And I've got a pretty cool story about, by the time this episode airs, being somewhere different.
Oh,
A little bit more relevant to Lost itself. So we'll get into that. Should we crack into episode 9 on the list?
Yeah. Let's crack into the 9th best episode of Lost, according to IMDb at least. So this one is Man of Science, Man of Faith. As we mentioned, it is the season 2, episode 1. And the very boring review is one of the castaways is chosen to descend into the mysterious hatch, and Shannon stumbles upon a shockingly familiar face in the jungle. Sounds very mysterious, as Fiona would say.
Now, I understand, Dan, you were writing review blogs back when Lost was airing.
Yes, I was. Yes,
I've never seen them before. As tempted as I am to click on that link, I've never read them. So I want your recap at this point in time, please.
Yes. Well, you won't be able to find them. They've been scraped from the internet. The blog is no more. So this is the only way you can catch up on them.
I feel like if we found them, you'd be cancelled or something. And you're being very selective.
Very possibly with some of them. Yeah. Yes, we shall see. Anyway, here's the recap for how I described the season premiere of the second season. The second season kicks off with the Doc, Locke, and Kate peering down the hatch they've carefully blown into 1,000 pieces. The Doc thinks the ladder looks a bit rickety, so forbids the other two from going down there. They ignore him. The Doc, furious with their disobedience, tells everyone else that no matter what happens, he will watch over them, his flock, and guide them to salvation and the dawn. This all-new Messiah complex is because flashbacks reveal he can heal crippled people with his tears and running shoes. No word yet on the water to wine thing, although Charlie in particular remains hopeful. The Doc, liar that he is, then immediately abandons everybody else to check out the hatch, which happens to be the home of a gun-wielding former stadium mountaineer the Doc once knew. Coincidence? I'm guessing yes.
That's fantastic. Already in your reviews, you've picked up on the heavy themes around faith and religion, all that sort of stuff, right? Last week I talked about how much of an idiot I am because I just watch the show, I get into the mysteries, I turn it off, I keep thinking about it. But Jack's father being Christian Shepherd didn't even dawn on me until like the show was nearly over. Or until he was playing a very kind of specific role later in the series, and just this idea of faith and belief. Like watching it now for the 4th time, it smacks you in the head.
It does.
And I'm not a deeply religious person at all, but it sounds like when you were watching it the first time round, a lot of those themes were pretty obvious.
Well, particularly for this episode, I mean, it is called Man of Science, Man of Faith.
It's
very upfront there. Although this one doesn't have as much to do with the faith. The faith in season 2 comes probably a couple of episodes later when we learn about the numbers and what they mean and whether they are actually doing anything or not. So so this one was a little less overt with it, despite the name of it.
Yeah, and it comes off the back of the conversation happens at the end of the first season, right? Where Locke says, you're a man of science. I'm a man of faith.
Yes.
A little bit of business to get out of the way. This was written by Damon Lindelof and directed by Jack Bender. First aired in the US on September 21st, 2005. And with 23.47 million viewers, this ended up being the most watched episode of the show.
Everyone wanted to know what was in the hatch.
Yeah, that's what they're all there for. And of course, in Australia, it first aired on the 2nd of February 2006. So we still had to wait a few months. IMDb rating, this receives a 9.1, which is why it is ninth on the list. That February date is so interesting because by this point, I'm pretty sure I was just driving to a friend's house with a few CDs ready to be burnt. And because so I don't think I was at that stage where I was just directly able to, pick and choose what I'd like to watch. And so
Yeah. No, me neither.
yeah, the expert friend in the group was the dealer. So I'd pop around there, get a few, maybe the latest Lupe Fiasco album, and a bunch of. So I'd get like a bunch of episodes at a time, maybe 6 or something. Go, watch them, and then I'd have to wait for like another batch to come out.
Yep.
Did you settle in on the couch on the 2nd of February 2006, or were you way ahead?
Yes, I did. Yeah, this was pre my bit torrenting evil ways. Alleged. Yeah, yeah. No, I was sitting on the couch. I was obeying. Like I managed to get through all of season 1 with either being there on the night. I think it was Thursday nights by memory, but maybe I'm misremembering that.
Yeah, it's definitely Thursday in the first when we talked about the pilot.
Yeah.
Definitely on a Thursday night. Yeah.
So I was either there on a Thursday night, or if I had to go out for whatever reason, these were still the days where I would set my VCR. I would program my VCR to record it for me. And there was only one episode I missed in the first season, and that was the Boone and Shannon flashback. So I was just like, oh well, no great loss missing that.
No.
I caught up on obviously, but yeah, I was still annoyed at the time. I set the tape to record incorrectly somehow. That always a risk in the days of programming a VCR.
Yeah, I can assume you just ended up with the lotto numbers and maybe the end of an episode of Blue Heelers or something.
Yes.
This time 2006. So after studying an advertising and sort of a degree, I'd finally made it. A company taken my resume, and I started a job at the most junior level possible.
Mm-hmm.
So 2006, I'm basically working in the ad industry, right? On the side of things where you buy the ad space for your clients.
Yep.
So what we would do is that you would have the networks would come in and pump up their schedule for the year, right? So nowadays they call them upfronts. They put on their big ritzy event, and they try and show off and make it feel like they are going to have the biggest year of all, because guess what? We've recycled Big Brother or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And but back then they would just come in to the boardroom. They would just come in, and someone would have the DVD that would play all of the reels that they'd gotten from the US, because back then they had all this content to choose from. But there used to be, so it was someone's job to fly overseas once a year during pilot season and just go shopping for, they'd had their network relationships. I think Seven and ABC had a relationship there, which is why you had other programs. And then they would come back, and someone would have like the golden DVD and say, this is it. This is going so well. It's rating its socks off in the US. Can't wait to show it to everyone in Australia. So I'm sitting in this boardroom, and normally the way these presentations go is that they go through, and it ends with what's going to be on at 7:30 every night, what's going to be at 8:30, 9:30. And back then it was Desperate Housewives and Lost.
Yes. Yep.
And Seven had this huge turnaround. They'd finally worked out that if we spent 2 weeks showing everyone the tennis, and we just promoted the heck out of these two new dramas, we'd get off to a flying start for the year, which they did. So the year previous was massive for them. Everyone watched Lost. So I'm sitting in this boardroom, and our job is to look at these programs and understand the audience that's going to watch, because we're trying to buy the people that our clients want to advertise to.
Yep.
And all anyone wanted to talk about to these poor suits from Seven was, are they going to answer any questions? Will Lost finally solve Are they going to give us this? I remember there's one man in there whose his job was we had one of the political parties was the client, right?
Mm.
And he was the expert that whenever an election or whatever came on, this guy was incredible, and he would turn his office into this incredible 24/7 buying machine. And I'll never forget him demanding to know, will the show answer the mysteries? And these poor guys from Seven going, I don't know.
I'm not Damon Lindelof, you bloody idiot.
No. And I feel like that the is this where culturally it also started to like you try and imagine the average goggle boxer now watching this show, especially from this season onward, and maintaining that desire to kind of keep coming back week
Yeah.
after week. Um,
Yeah. Well, I do remember reading about this particular episode, and Lindelof was asked zillions of times, what's down the hatch, like, because
yep.
everyone was annoyed, much like Fiona was, that they ended with not actually going down the hatch. That was the big cliffhanger, and they sat on that for however long it was, 6 months.
Yep.
And everyone was saying, what's asking him what's down the hatch, what's down the hatch, and he would give joking answers or all kinds of dumb answers to see if he could muck about with people. And I do remember at one point, apparently, he told somebody on one magazine or something, they
Mm.
said, as everyone did, what's down the hatch? He said, oh, it's a Scotsman entering data into a computer in order to prevent the end of the world. And of course, they went, ah, ha, ha, ha,
Oh
ha,
yes.
ha, very funny, very funny. And then he made up something for the next one, but that was very amusing, I thought.
Yeah, yes. That speaking of that opening scene of the episode is burned in my
Yeah,
brain as one of my favorite moments of the show and one of my favorite moments in all of television. That like how ballsy to show the full like previously on,
yeah,
Walt's been stolen,
yes,
and Michael is screaming, and then just cut to the record player, and then the song, and you're like, okay, I'm seeing some orange. Is this the hatch? Like, what's going on here?
yeah,
What an incredible way to start. I see it. For me, I remember thinking they're chosen weird. They're committing to the
yeah,
weirdness. That yes, it's a network drama and there's love triangles and things like that. But the second we go down the hatch, we're going to get Dharma logos everywhere. And we are full on committing to the sci-fi, the mystery. We want everyone to obsess over that. And I thought that was really
yeah.
kind of gutsy for a show that's sitting in that kind of prime time slot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's an iconic opening scene. My reaction is identical to yours. I've got in my notes here. What a way to start a season! It's
Yeah.
just absolutely brilliant. And this whole idea of, because they've done so many flashbacks and they hid Desmond's face, so he's just like, oh, who's this getting up and getting ready? It's a bit
Yep.
older. I wonder who. Maybe it's Locke. Maybe it's Jack. Maybe it's Sawyer. Who could it be? You don't actually know. And then the revelation that it's somebody down the hatch. It just kind of, it sounds so simple, but
Yeah.
it really did blow everybody's minds at the
Yeah.
time, and it's just so clever. And they'd kind of replicate that style of oblique introductions to a season in future seasons as well.
Mhm.
They obviously got massive acclaim for this. So I thought, oh well, we'll do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
We may discuss some of them in the future. I'm not quite sure how many future season openers we got on the list, but yeah.
It's a fantastic example of one of the first times where they trained an audience to think one way, and then they did something like you said, like, okay, this has got to be a flashback, a weird one, but this is somebody's
Yeah.
flashback, not
Yes.
particularly the hatch. The ultimate one would come, and we'll get to that in another episode. But yeah, it's like you said, you're just seeing this person, and you're just like, this is so different. And I'd missed the Dharma logos at the end of the first season. Apparently there's a logo on a shark and all these things, right?
Right.
But
Yeah, I heard that too, but I didn't notice either.
no, and I'm watching it on a subpar copy on the TV. So if there's one sort of in the water somewhere, I couldn't see it. But now it's like, okay, no, okay, right. There's just this is blowing my mind. There's so much to think about now. I don't care about anyone of the normal cast. I need to know what's going on and what this hatch is all about.
I do remember kind of in between seasons, I bought the season 1 DVD because that was that came out. I think I looked this up. This came out November 30th, 2005. So that was a
Oh,
Christmas present to myself.
what a
And
Christmas
I
present.
did not wait until Christmas to open it. I bought it and started watching
Yep.
immediately, rewatching season one, checking out all the commentaries and the bonus features and the deleted scenes. So, and I probably watched that season. I reckon I would have watched it maybe a couple more times on DVD
Oh,
before the
okay.
time February 2nd came around. I was very into what's going on, what is going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, so and yeah, that's how I caught up on that great Boone Shannon flashback episode. So very important.
I do love in your review you mentioned Jack, like after they blow up the hatch, Jack's like, righto, well, okay, back to the caves, shall we? And you're like, no,
Yeah.
someone's going down there. And when
Yes.
he was talking to or he's giving the big speech to the group, and Locke pops back. He's like, "Don't mind me, just getting some cable, heading back."
See you later.
Yeah. Like someone who's just not hanging on every like Jack's, especially this is an important time for leadership, right? Like, what are we going to
Yeah.
do? And he's like, "No, no,
Yeah.
no, I've got my plan. Like, I'm remember, man of faith. We didn't know that
I'm going down.
Kate was down there, right? And that he was going after her. Um,
Yep.
and another fun moment is I think because Hurley had tried to stop the whole thing because he'd seen the
Yes.
numbers, the serial
Yep.
numbers, he has a moment where he tells Jack, "Oh yeah, no, I'm a millionaire and I was in a psych ward and I saw the numbers and and Jack's like, okay, like it was nice to hear because people had not believed a word he'd said
Yeah.
about that previously.
Yeah, the kind of lock jack divergence here, which had been brewing for some
Mm,
time by this stage, pretty much since Boone had died, more or less.
yeah.
There's kind of an ongoing trend through each season of Lost. They pretty much always split into two groups. Like you had the beach
Hmm.
people and the cave
Yes.
people in season one.
Yep.
You're going to get some hatch people and some other people. Yeah, and going into later seasons, you got the ones who want to check out the
Hmm.
freighter and the ones who go, nah, we've got to hide from the freighter. So pretty much every season, it's like, all right, how are we going to split these people up again and
Yeah.
have them squabbling over something? So this
Yeah.
was a good early example of that.
I'm not sure how many more opportunities we'll have to talk about the hatch itself, but it
Mm.
is funny that the way they're able to keep a status quo going. So when you've got, 20 episodes or whatever, and you've got to reset all the season and get things back to a bit of a status quo, you've got a place with a shower and food
Yeah,
and a washing machine and
very
and
convenient.
then there's a schedule to follow for everyone to input into the numbers. But we keep hearing about this mysterious schedule and people being rostered on and off.
Mm.
It's part of conversation. Well, actually, I'm taking Hurley's shift so that he can go to the beach
Yes,
or
yep.
whatever. And I always wonder who was on that. How many of the red shirts were also part of that rostered?
None of the red shirts.
None.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
yeah,
you?
your name had to come up in the opening credits to actually get a
Yeah.
roster down the hatch, I think.
What is it? 108 minutes? That's right?
Yeah, yep,
Yeah, that's
yep,
enough time for a shower.
yeah.
And maybe sit down and have something. Look, there's a kitchen in there.
There's a kitchen, yeah.
Yeah, and they're eating cereal and everything, and it's one of those fun. It's just fun to daydream about, and I don't think it ever broke the reality of the show. Like some things maybe later on, it just added to it. There was more tension over
Yeah,
this. Like, what are we going to move in here? No, but then that means we're settling in. We don't have eyes on getting off the island,
yep.
which is still the big narrative. If you at this stage of the show.
Yeah, and I guess the other great thing, the thing that I love most about the hatch, and it kind of wears thin by the end of season two, but the whole what happens if you don't put the numbers in? Does it actually
Hmm.
do anything, or
Yeah.
is this just all a mind game? And they just balance that perfectly. It's just, oh, maybe it does something, maybe it doesn't, and no one's game to do it. I think it's the end of episode 3 where Jack finally begrudgingly, he tells Locke, it's nothing.
Yes.
Nothing's going to
Yeah.
happen if you don't press the numbers. Then he begrudgingly, all right, I'll take the shift. He sits down and he starts putting in the numbers. So it's yeah, I just love that kind of thing where we don't know, the
Hmm.
characters don't know. It's just a big mystery. What will happen if they don't press it? And of
It's
course, that all ties together
yeah.
later.
It's very similar to season 5 when they have the hydrogen bomb and they're racing
Mm,
we've got to set off the bomb to change,
yep.
which will mean we never got on the plane. But then
Yes.
actually, is that so? Then you're going, no, which one's the right answer? Should it happen or should it
Yeah.
not happen?
If we set it off, are we actually creating the incident we're trying to stop?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
we may have more to discuss about the incident next week, perhaps.
Yeah. Actually, yes. Good timing. And of course we get an introduction to Desmond, who
Mm,
becomes, one of many people's favorite characters. And him saying "see you in another life" after he
yep.
meets Jack on the staircase. Of course, was going for a run because he had a big surgery ahead of him. We'd not met his wife, right? Like we know
I
was married
think
and
had we
divorced?
seen? I think we'd seen I think we'd seen them getting married maybe at halfway through season one, or not the back half of season one. I think
Yep.
we'd seen Jack's wedding day or him planning for his wedding or whatever. I think that was the first clue that he'd been married, but we hadn't actually seen how these two lovebirds met
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
in a massive car crash.
Yes, yeah. Which I also found out the other person in the car crash was Shannon's father, which I didn't know that. So
Yes.
little fun fact again for some people, that's all, possibly old news, but I'm discovering a few new little nuggets here and there as I go for
Yeah.
another rewatch.
Well, one of the kind of very niche theories that I read as I was researching this, which hadn't occurred to me before, was that it's revealed that Boone's mother ran like a wedding.
Oh,
I don't know
yes.
what you call them, wedding organizing company.
Hmm.
So perhaps Jack's soon-to-be future wife was actually heading off to set up her own wedding. So Sarah was setting up to set up her
Oh,
own
yeah, of
wedding.
course.
Perhaps
Yes.
she was going to that actual place, and he was coming from there, and that's where they crashed.
Which makes total sense.
Yep.
And another entry into the total dickbag ex boyfriend, or current boyfriend, that's clearly not the right person because he's got other
Oh, what a
things.
douche.
Yes, yeah, like they really sort of ran their own, don't they?
Did you recognize who that actor was?
No.
You may not know this. It depends on whether you watch Star Trek or not.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's Anson Mount, and he plays Captain Pike in a few recentish Star Trek TV shows. So
Oh,
he's
okay.
gone on to bigger and better things. He's gone on to pilot a spaceship. I don't really watch much Star Trek myself, but I did watch a little.
Not a lot of Star Trek for me. Well, good on him. I
Mm,
think Sarah was the real winner because while her marriage with Jack didn't work out, she did go on to marry
yeah.
Phil Dunphy and have three
Yes.
very funny kids. I think she was the. I do like to imagine her while Jack is still on the island, even in those future episodes when he's.
Well, we do never see who her new partner is, do we? We never actually
Uh,
see that. Jack
he
Jack's trying to hunt him down, and she doesn't reveal his name, or I don't think we see his face ever. So it could easily be Phil.
Unfortunately, I think he makes an appearance at the end of season three,
Oh, does
like
he?
when he's fully,
Uh,
when he's actually in Oceanic Six, Jack.
yeah.
He makes a bit of, I think, is it that? I might be
Uh,
confusing it. Hey, that's the whole point of this podcast. A fun moment when Jack walks through the hatch, the key
mm,
reacts to the magnet. And we should probably do a quick Shannon seeing Walt in the jungle. Dan,
yeah.
I'll admit now, I still don't know when someone appears as like an apparition in the jungle, because I'm pretty sure I know my Man in Black sightings.
Mm.
Are we just saying apparition? We're just saying ghosts. We
I'm not sure. Yeah, I did make a list as I did last time of some of the mysteries that were out and about in this particular episode and whether they were solved. And I did add how is Walt appearing to Shannon on the
Yep.
list. I think you can make a case. I'm not saying this is definitively correct, but you can make a case that it might be the Man in Black because, because he can change form and like he's the smoke monster, so he
Yeah.
changes form to be Yami to kill off Mr. Echo later. And here he's a few episodes from now he'll actually try and lead Shannon and successfully lead Shannon straight into a gunshot from Ana Lucia. So and Shannon is a candidate, I believe. So
Yeah.
I think he's not allowed to
Mm.
kill her directly. So but I think he can lead her into the gunfire of Ana Lucia. So maybe it's the Man in Black, or maybe it is just like Walt's special. So Walt can do all kinds of weird shit. So
Yeah, and that's still not clear to
that's a
me.
bit of a blur.
Yes, yeah, Walt and just him. Some of the people that seem to have gifts before they were on the island, I
Mm,
always felt like it was the writers going, "Oh shit, we shouldn't have done that." We
yeah.
like Walt making the bird smash against the window, and then yes, still appearing on the island even though he wasn't there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'll just quickly go through the other mysteries that I kind of
oh please,
tabulated from this episode. So, what is Desmond doing in the hatch? We answer that a couple of episodes later. He's
Hmm.
typing in the numbers. How did Desmond and Jack just happen to meet one another before coming to the island? And that's never really answered. But I mean, there is this general connectivity of these people. So it's, they're bumping into one another all the time, whether that's
Mm.
because they're all candidates or what's going on, who knows? So that's a bit vaguer
Yeah.
as to why they're always bumping into one another before they get to the island.
There is a bit of a thing around Desmond being kicked out of the monastery
Mm,
by the guy that was running it was a friend of Eloise,
yes.
and then Widmore basically mentions this race around the world, which will then get him to crash on the island.
Yeah.
So there's those things are in place for Desmond, who that seems to be the heaviest hand of any character before they get to the
Yeah.
island.
Yeah.
But doesn't necessarily mean he needs to go running up and down that particular
Yeah. At the
stadium.
exact same time that Jack is. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. And I still don't think their reactions are natural enough for two people to go, "Hey, what you?"
Yes. Yes.
Which was the end of the episode. A fantastic ending as well when you get the reveal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got great ending to the episode. And I guess the final one I've got here is how did Jack cure Sarah? I mean, her spine was shattered. And I guess the most logical explanation is that it wasn't Jack at all. Jacob just popped in at some point and went, "Bing! I need to cure this woman so she'll marry Jack and then divorce him, and then he'll be so distraught he'll start drinking and end up on an island."
Yeah,
We know Jacob can heal people.
that works because if he gets married or is getting married and then his father, because of how he had,
Mm,
I guess he sort of had this thing that he thought that his dad was ringing his girlfriend, or
yes.
maybe there was a history of him.
Yeah, it's very, very unclear what's going on, but it's
Yeah, so
yeah.
he was like, what's going on? Which then I guess further drives Christian to his guilt, which was obviously about Claire. He ends up in Australia. Jack ends up in Australia.
Yep, all coming together.
It's all coming together.
So I guess there's only kind of a couple of other points I want to note here. I did quite like Kate's comment that if Locke fell down the hatch, he might break his back. I thought that was kind of quite amusing.
Foreboding.
But I guess overall, I was a little bit disappointed by this episode on a rewatch. I've
Hmm.
seen it many times, and
Hmm.
that the first time you watch it, that amazing opening scene and the twist of it being Desmond
Yep.
being the one down the hatch, the
Hmm.
guy in the doing all the jogging is also the one down the hatch. First time around, that's absolutely mind blowing. It's brilliant. This felt a little bit like this is only kind of the start of the hatch stuff. We're not even into the really good stuff of the numbers
No,
and all that kind of stuff. I felt like this really belongs as the first part of a 3-part season opener or something.
I agree. I agree because on a rewatch, you kind of go, "Oh yes, that's right, Desmond. Love Desmond." And
Yep.
he exits at the beginning of this episode, like at the end of the episode, right? He runs off, and we don't
That's the
really
end. That's
see
the
him
end of
again.
a later episode. So he's still here at the end of
Oh
this
yes, yes,
episode.
yep, yeah.
He
They need
runs
to.
off at the end of the third episode,
Yes, yeah. There's a bit
or
of
halfway through.
crisscrossing. Yeah, as
Yeah.
we get all the different perspectives of however, they spend 3 episodes getting everyone into the hatch. He
Yep.
runs off, and then we don't see him again for another.
Till the end of the season, pretty
Basically,
much.
yes, yeah, pretty much until the end. So I've got, yes, all these fond memories, but they're not exactly tied to this sort of very first episode. So other than that really iconic opening, it's, yes, as a standalone episode, while being very strong, doesn't have as many other kind of classic moments
Yeah.
that you would think of.
And it is very harsh to judge it based on second and third watchings when
Well,
that
yeah.
first watch is so amazing. And so
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Let's go on to classic reviews. Not a little section
Mm,
here. Any internet digging, historical things of note that put us back in that time and place in the sort of mid to late 2000s. Dan, we've already heard your review.
yes.
I don't think there's much else out there, but I thought it would be fun to look back. So this kicks off the second season, and
Mm,
only a few months after this, in January, they'd be at the Golden Globes winning Best Drama, Best TV
yep.
Drama. That was on January 16, 2006. So what's odd is that the Golden Globes are always in January. So we're midway through the season here. Midway through season one receives a nomination. So they've already
Yep.
been and lost to the Golden Globes.
Right.
But in 2006, in the middle of season two, about 11 episodes in, here we are again, I guess on the merits of season 2,
Yeah.
where the show wins a Golden Globe. And I thought it would be fun to go back. Dan, do you think you can name any of the other nominations that lost and
Call
beat
it.
out? Think of how prestigious the Golden Globes are.
Yeah.
Maybe not in
So this is
2006.
just drama.
This is your best,
Drama,
yeah,
right?
your best drama.
I can't even think of what I was watching then. I know Heroes came along in season 3. That was very big.
Mm.
Was Prison Break around this time? Was that probably
Prison
wasn't prestigious enough,
Prison Break was there.
was
It
it?
was nominated. This is what you're
Oh, really?
probably.
Okay.
Yeah, there's only one.
What about something like 24? Was 24 going?
No, but you're geez,
No.
you're in the right zone. No, 24. Do you want the list?
Yeah, give me the list. I'm not gonna guess this.
Prison Break, Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
Grays. Oh, and probably Desperate Housewives as well,
no,
right?
no, and then
Oh,
your
really?
other prestige drama. I remember this show called Rome.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
never watched it, but I know of
no,
it.
your big budget HBO film series, I think, and then Commander in Chief. Uh,
Oh, yes. Yep.
Another what I assume was a White House drama or
Mm.
something. Was it
Was
was
that the one with Taya Leone, or was that a different one? I get all
oh,
these White House dramas mixed up.
I just know that Donald Sutherland.
No, no, this one, no, Taya Leone was a different one. She was Madam Secretary.
Yes, of course she was. Yes, was Commander in Chief.
Commander in Chief might have been Glenn Close or somebody.
Yes, was it because that was a female? Maybe because it was a female president, and that was such a
I
novel
think
thing.
so. I think that was the gimmick.
Yes, worthy of its own
I
TV.
mean, it's very far fetched to have a woman as president.
Unbelievable. Okay, best actor. Now, our man Matthew Fox was
Hmm.
nominated. Unfortunately, did not win. Would you like to
Yep.
have a crack at some of the other?
Who would it have been then? Best. So it's from the shows you were mentioning before. Are there Rome people in there?
No, but you've got all four runner-up are basically from the shows we just spoke about. Kiefer Sutherland in
Yes, of
24,
course. 24. Yeah.
Wentworth Miller in Prison Break, Matthew Fox,
Hmm.
and then Patrick Dempsey for Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, of course.
Um,
Was he a McSteamy or a McDreamy? I can't remember which one he was.
I,
He was one of the McGeenies.
I don't know, but I feel like he only lasted a few because that show's still going, isn't it? It's about 20 seasons in.
I think
So I
it
feel like
is. Yeah.
he's overall he was only ever in maybe 5% of the show or something.
Yes.
No, your winner for I'd love to get your point of view on this for a lead actor in a TV drama was Hugh Laurie for House.
Okay. Yeah, I quite liked House in the day.
Yeah,
I forgot about House.
yeah, first couple of seasons.
Hugh Laurie with the American accent.
Yes. Yeah, well that was his big wasn't that his sort of
Mm.
his big first time doing a bit of American
Yeah, yeah, that was good.
movie and drama?
Yeah, I enjoyed a bit of House in the day. Everybody had lupus, I seem to recall, or at least
Yes.
lupus was always a possibility for what was ailing people.
And it's another one of these things where I'm such an idiot, I don't pay attention to anything. But it was another reinvention of Sherlock Holmes, right? Wasn't that the kind of the idea? It was
Yeah,
adjacent
essentially,
to,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Never even crossed my mind.
No, it didn't cross my mind, but somebody pointed it out to me and went, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best supporting actor. Now this is here because our man Naveen Andrews, Saeed,
Oh, okay. So,
was
Saeed.
nominated, did not win, but your
No.
other nominees, only one of them, Donald Sutherland, as I mentioned, for Commander in Chief.
So good reunion of father and son there at the Golden Globes. Kiefer's there and Donald's there hanging
Yes.
out.
Yep. Neither of them winners on the night.
No,
Clearly failures.
drowning their sorrows.
Yes. So it's a bizarre collection of actors here. You've got your winner, the most prestigious man that could probably grab one of these, Paul Newman, who was the
Yep,
best supporting
yep.
actor in Empire Falls. No idea what that is.
Never
Don't
heard of
ask.
Empire
No,
Falls. I don't believe that
don't ask
exists.
me. And then we slide down. We slide right down to the bottom of the ladder to Jeremy Piven for Entourage. If you
Oh,
remember when that
God, okay.
took over the world.
Yep. I didn't watch Entourage, but I know it existed.
I didn't see much of Entourage. And then what can I only assume was a limited sort of TV thing. Randy Quaid, who played Colonel Parker, Elvis's manager.
Yeah.
Tom Parker, was that his name?
Yeah,
In a
that
show
sounds
that
right.
was just called Elvis. I couldn't
Okay.
tell you anything about it, but Randy Quaid, he who has completely fallen off the deep end,
Yes.
Yeah, give that a Google. Yeah, he's up there with Paul Newman, Donald Sutherland, with the best of the best.
Very
So
good.
that was a little trip to the Golden Globes.
Do you have the best comedies up there? Because around about this stage was also when I discovered Arrested Development. I think I
Ah,
at the same time I bought the DVD of Lost. I bought the DVD of Arrested Development and was pretty similarly obsessed. They're very similar. Like I always think Arrested Development is like the comedy version of Lost. They've got all these big cast,
hmm.
all these very intricate relationships between things, lots of callbacks and
Yep.
like they don't actually do flash forward. Well, they actually do the occasional flash forward and flash back, but not in great depth. But there's lots of interconnections there, so I think they're kind of broadly similar.
Sorry to disappoint, but based on my recording setup, the keyboard is out of reach, and
That's all right.
I'm only with mouse. But
Let's say they want everything.
yeah, let's go to list within a list. Has this episode inspired another list to be listed out?
Yeah, so this one is kind of inspired by the fact that we see Sarah's origin story. As we mentioned, I think we'd met her once before, but this is
Hmm.
kind of a deeper dive into their relationship. And Sarah is one of the quite rare set of characters who never actually set foot on the island,
Mm,
which kind of got us wondering, who is your favorite never on the island character?
yeah,
So have you created a list? I've got a
I've
list here,
I've
but I'll let
I've
you
got a
go
list.
first.
I've got a list. I've gone four deep. How many have you got?
I've got multiple. I can match your four. Well,
Okay.
unless you steal all four of mine, then we might be in trouble. But we'll see.
I'm going to start with number one and then we'll work our way
Yeah,
down.
start
So
with your best one.
my best
Yeah.
one is, of course, Helen.
Ah, okay.
She, the legendary Katie Seagal,
Yes.
who, again, it's this show doing this thing where, again, I didn't know you could do that, where you could tap someone to play a role and then say, that's all we need for now. But could you come back next
Yeah.
year for a one-off? And then could you come back the following year? We last week we talked about favorite couples, and I reckon I jumped the gun when I endorsed
Mm.
your Sawyer Juliet thing because
Yeah.
I'll always have a soft spot for Locke and Helen, and I'll always wonder what could have been, and I always get
Yeah.
upset
Locke
when
wasn't such an idiot.
exactly. I always
Yeah.
whenever we watch it, I hope that Locke makes a different decision, and
Yeah.
I'm always a little bit crushed. So yeah, Helen for me,
Yes.
she's my number one.
That's a very good one. My number one, and this is kind of a cheat, but I couldn't resist once I remembered. Billy D. Williams playing himself in Expose. So come on, it's Lando Calrissian, number one with a bullet for me.
Yeah, the whole creative team on this show are obviously massive nerds, and so this was their best opportunity to get someone like that when they did that
Yep.
episode.
Yes.
I do not know if that episode is in our future, but absolutely worth mentioning. Billy D, like,
Yes.
yeah, such a good way to get any one of you choosing to just kind of come in and
Yep.
have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Worked
Yeah.
really well.
So that's my number one.
All right,
What's your next one?
number two for me, Matthew Abaddon.
Oh, that is a good one. I didn't think of Abaddon. That's a good one.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he just fit so like if there was ever another character actor that could be dropped into the universe
Mm,
and fit
yeah.
perfectly, and I'm just double checking me. He never made it to the island. Unfortunately, he was gunned down in the street by Ben. But he had those
Yeah.
few mysterious first appearances when he tells Locke to go on the walkabout,
Yep.
and then eventually he
Yep.
becomes his driver, and he sees Hurley as well. He spends some time with Hurley when Hurley's
Mm.
when he's in that institution. So everything about him, he just fits so perfectly. Matthew Abaddon for me.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Did you ever see Fringe? He was
Love
great on
Fringe,
Fringe.
absolutely
Fringe, yeah.
love. Yeah,
Yeah.
love. That's all
Yeah.
part of the reason why I endorse him so much.
Yes, excellent. All right, that's very good. I did not think of him. My number two is Jin's dad, Mr. Kwan, because
Oh no, you're gonna make me
he's,
cry.
he's, he's other people have claimed he's the only good father on the show, and I think
Oh
I could sign off on that.
yeah.
Because he raised Jin
Mm-hmm.
like very likely he wasn't his biological father. He was just given Jin and told that
Yep.
he was,
Mm-hmm.
and just raised him. And the nicest man there,
Yep.
just a lovely fisherman, very salt of the sea. Yeah. So Jin's
Taught
dad is my number two.
taught
Two.
Jin everything he knows about fishing. Like such a good way
Exactly.
to even start the sort of the way the show started with how they're going to survive, and okay, maybe it's a little bit sort of stereotype, but these two
Mm,
characters, kind of, especially Jin knew how to fish, but
yep.
it all made sense. Number
Yep.
three for me, and you tell me if this is a disqualification, but I'm claiming it, is Penny, because while she
No,
makes it,
Penny was my number four. So yeah,
good.
Penny's good.
Yes, yep. Because I do definitely major stands for Penny and Desmond, and wanting that to work out. So a couple of great moments. One when the beacon first goes off and she gets the phone
Yep.
call, and then when her and Desmond are finally reunited on the ship, which you just think
Yep.
that that's their avenue to
Mm,
sort of being the oceanic. I'd completely forgotten that existed and that she'd been out there. So that's
yep.
a huge moment.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Penny's a great call. I mean, she's the only one who keeps looking for them. Everyone else says, "Oh, they're dead." And
Yeah.
yep, she's keen. All right. I will put I will put my number three in as this is very obscure, but it amuses me. It's Leonard, who's the guy in the hospital playing Connect Four with himself, muttering the numbers over and
Oh,
over
yes.
that convinces Hurley. So he's completely crazy,
Yeah.
driven mad by the numbers, driven mad by Russo's message.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I wanted to put just about everybody that Hurley interacted with in the hospital. I love the doctor. I love, yeah, everybody. Obviously, not couldn't have included Libby because Libby does end up on the island, but
Yes.
everybody else, fantastic.
And
Leonard's my call, but just because he's our first numbers person.
yes, yeah. It's his wife that Hurley is going to visit. Is that right, in Australia, or was it somebody else? Or a friend
No,
like worked with, or something?
I thought, yeah, I think the story was that he worked, he was tracking something at sea in the military, and he had a partner, and yeah, they picked up the signal from the island,
Yep.
and that's what drove them both insane, and I think his mate eventually killed himself, and that's when Hurley met up with
Yeah. Yeah.
his wife or his widow.
When you think about it now, it kind of makes sense that they're just coming within proximity of the island without fully crossing
Mm,
over can kind of muck around with you,
yeah.
as we sort of we'll see later on. Okay, I've got number four, and so this is my last one. But it's
Yep.
Jimmy Lennon. Jimmy Lennon, who bursts into the bar with the cricket bat, where and
Yes.
and Desmond tells the barman to duck, and then he whacks
Yep.
Desmond on the head and sends him back. That was in
Very good call.
three flashes before your eyes. It was either him or Desmond's mate that he sort of has a beer with, who's like
Yep.
a physicist or something himself, and he's like, well, I don't know what you mean by time travel. So, um,
Yep.
that's my top four.
All right. I've got. Well, I'm going to cheat and get Hurley's parents in as my last one.
Oh,
Hurley's mum's a great character. His dad is
yes.
Cheech. Like they're excellent characters.
This is I've so poorly researched on this because I've got so much to say about these characters in future episodes of this podcast. That's such a great shout. Like the redemption story for Cheat, like he's one of those characters that yes, he's a bad dad, but then you
Yeah,
assume that
he
yeah,
gets
he's
better.
just there for the money, and then no, he's in it for the long haul, and he really
Yeah,
helps.
yeah, he comes back for the money, but then he sticks around and
Yeah,
helps Hurley in some tough times. So yeah, he's all right.
yeah.
And I guess the only other honorable mention I had here was Malkin, the con artist slash fake psychic who tells Claire she has to get on the plane.
Here's
So
so I had one bad, I had one worst, and I had
yeah,
my top four. So
yeah,
yeah, so Richard Malkin, who is
yeah,
the fake psychic, as he eventually
yes.
confesses to Mr. Echo, who
Mm.
on his IMDb page lists being in Mad Magazine, their parody of Lost. He's featured in that parody, and he says, "This is me fulfilling a lifelong dream by being prominently featured in Mad Magazine's Lost parody. Now I can die happy."
There
So
you
we've
go. It all comes together. So many
come full
connections.
circle,
We're
and
all interconnected.
that's right. And you'll be surprised to learn he's not in fact Australian.
No.
That accent was pure acting, but he's
Yes.
also been in some of my other favorite media. He's been in the Psychonauts game. If you're familiar with the Double Fine video games, Full Throttle, Psychonauts. Sam and Max, which is on a different studio, but there's some absolute classic.
I used to love Sam and Max when I was a kid.
Yeah, so
Well, maybe slightly older than a kid.
he's
I can't remember when they came out, but I remember loving them.
you had to have a really good computer to play those because it was like watching a cartoon on your computer.
Yeah.
So I never got to play them until they were like remastered and things like that. So he went from one of my worst to now one of my favorites. So kudos to you, Mr. Malcolm. And welcome back. We are now joined by our dear friend Fiona. Fiona, we spoke to you on the first episode of this podcast, and you told us the story of how you'd sworn an oath 20 years earlier, how you'd watched the first season of Lost, and as that season had ended, you swore an oath to never watch the show ever again. It lasted 20 years until we convinced you very, very politely. You were very, very gracious in agreeing to revisit the show and perhaps give it another shot. So we gave you homework, and since we last spoke, because we have not spoken, I believe you have completed watching season 1 of Lost. Can you confirm? Are you yes?
Again, yes, that's exactly it. I'm exactly where I was last time, and not a step further, I will say. I have just finished season 1.
And I've got to know so that was, you watched it 20 years ago on the couch with your sister, I think you said, week to week on Channel 7. You've now you've had the luxury of streaming. You've watched it. Were memories flooding back? Was it how much of it felt like, oh yeah, hang on, I remember this, and how much of it was like, shit, I've forgotten. I pulled all of this out of my brain and deliberately forgot about it.
It was really bizarre. It was almost like 50-50. Like there were things that I was like, it's like I watched this yesterday, and then all of a sudden a Hobbit would appear. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot the Hobbit guy was in it.
Yes, yes.
I forgot that, that annoying boy's dad was, Mercutio from Romeo and Juliet. There was sort of all that. And then there was also like characters who I like instantly really disliked, and I couldn't quite put my finger on whether that was some dormant memory or is that just me being super judgmental. But yeah,
what were some of those characters?
Locke instantly, and I couldn't remember instantly. But I think, like, am I just able to talk about what I've watched?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it was bubbling along, and then when who got donked on the head when they were trying to triangulate
was it Saeed?
The signal, maybe. And then I was like, I think Locke did that. Like, I think it came back to me. I was like, that's right. That was the first time when I was like, oh, someone's actively trying to keep them on, someone in the group is actively trying to keep them on the island. So I think that's what it was. It was that in the back of my mind, I'm like, he's going to betray, he shall be the first to betray them,
I suppose by the end of the season, there's that shot down the hatch with Jack and Locke. They've just had this big discussion around man of science, man of faith, trying to get off the island. We're supposed to be here for a reason. And then, they're tracking down the hatch. I've got to know, because last time you were like, that's it. That's enough. I've seen enough. I'm not even curious.
Yeah.
I guess it's a two-part question now that I've brought up the hatch. How are you feeling about Locke by the time those themes are really kind of more obvious and he's on his mission and Jack's on his other? And then two, are you at least curious about what's in the hatch?
I am. And I think I had so obviously I just watched that, and I actually did not have a memory as to whether or not they got the hatch open or not. So actually seeing that the dynamite worked, the hatch is open, and then you're 100% right, that very cool scene that just that camera just kept on tracking, didn't it? Like to the depths of God knows what. I am super what's in the fucking hatch? I was watching something recently, Shrinking. I don't know if anyone's watching Shrinking.
Is that with Harrison Ford?
With Harrison Ford, right? So I just started watching that, and it's one of those things where once you start looking out for things, they pop up all the time. But someone made a joke like, "What is this? The inside of the hatch on Lost?" And then I was like, "What does that joke mean?"
Oh no, they've almost Shrinking's almost given because it is Harrison Ford. It's Harrison Ford.
He's in the hatch the whole time.
Yeah.
So no, I think that the yes, I just I think because I've been so angry at the show for so long and I convinced myself for so long that it told me nothing, like I had just decided that by the end of the season, the hatch was still sealed, like it had given me nothing. So I think when that did pop, I was like, oh, hang on a minute. The dynamite, because mathematically or physically, I don't really know words, but I don't actually understand how the dynamite worked, but that's fine.
It goes boom. It goes,
big
it popped it
exploding.
open like a can. Yeah.
I hope you hadn't fallen too much in love with Dr. Arts. Just that's how we learn that dynamite go boom.
Yeah, he ended up on everybody. That was foul. Yeah. And it was interesting too, because like it got to, again, I've still got my 20 year ago brain of being annoyed by the show, but it's for so much of the season, I was like, how many people are almost going to die and not going to die? Like, let's kill some bitches. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's of the time. I don't know if more recently, we're more willing to kill off characters. It's the Game of Thrones, let's take Redacted's head in the first Redacted. But yeah, then eventually they did kill our friend Boone, and then obviously we did have the big explosion. So I was like, okay, we're killing some people now. Yeah.
I have to. I'm going to read out. You were texting me the odd thought as you were watching it. It was so hard for me to not comment on a lot of these, but I've got some here I'd love to run through. And Dan, you haven't heard this type of feedback, but I've categorized it right. There's all the usual like season 1 of Lost, and it's so hard for us to not say, hey, don't maybe other seasons feel a little bit different, but season 1, you said it's an incredibly multicultural flight on its way to LAX with hardly any Aussies on board. Like not even a single family of 4 off to Anaheim to Disneyland, like on a family holiday.
I have caught flights from 2 non-Australian destinations and had more Australians on the flight than that. I'm aware that's not the entire plane, but this left Australia going to America. Like, there's no way there were that few Australians that survived that. Not a pair of thongs to be seen.
I quote,
a neck pillow.
It seems so unlikely that a flight from Australia to the USA would have so little Australians. How were all of these Americans in Australia? How did they accumulate enough annual leave?
Am I wrong? Where's the lie?
Yeah, no, sounds true.
And then you marveled at the guy who survived an entire plane crash only to be sucked into one of the engines on the beach on day 1.
I enjoyed that a lot. Like, I just thought, like, imagine being that extra and you're like, and that's your claim to fame. It was like, remember the show Lost? Yeah, I was the dude that had half a line and then got sucked into a jet engine on the beach. Like, I would dine off that. I would dine off that for the rest of my life.
Something else here. If the Doctor brings the Hobbit back to life with the worst CPR I've ever seen, I will stop watching the show. He didn't even sing Staying Alive.
You can also do CPR to Pink Pony Club now, by the way. I don't know if anyone's done their CPR update recently, but Pink Pony Club will also. That was the worst CPR I have ever seen. And he's a doctor. I know he's a surgeon, and but still, he saved him with a punch. I was angry because I thought we're going to lose the Hobbit here, and that's fine because we have to lose people. Like, I'm a big fan of losing people on TV shows, and then no, he coughed up a dust of heroin, and he was fine.
Yes. The Australian accent's a criminal. Agreed.
Yes.
Now, Dan, do you remember when Hurley goes to in season 1, where you finally get the Hurley episode, and he's all the way off in the outback, and he's talking to like the wife of somebody or worked with someone who went crazy, and he's got
because of the numbers. Yeah,
that's right. Fiona has sent me a picture, the establishment shot of that sort of tin shed. She said, not a ute in sight in this.
It's just this beautiful red terrain with like this picturesque, 1920s tin shack, a beautiful place, but like not a vehicle, not a ute.
No, they rode kangaroos there.
Yeah. Not just beautiful on the outside, beautiful on the inside. Fiona picked up again, this is a screenshot, and I'll share this on the socials, and Dan, get you to have a look at this. But that lady has crafted the finest mobile dioramic mobile hanging from the ceiling of just boomerangs. So the set designers have gone, let's just string some
boomerangs. Who among us hasn't crafted a diorama of boomerangs?
That's how you know you're in Australia.
I'm hearing merch idea for your podcast, guys.
Yes. And this might be a step too far, but you speculated on step sibling fanfic because of the Boone and Shannon relationship, and I that's a Pandora's box I'm not willing to talk about.
I come from a family of half siblings, step siblings, and I thought, are they implying? Surely they're not. And then they were implying it, and they weren't just implying it. They spelt it out. It was foul.
So you've made it this far. Character, like, I'm glad that you wanted Charlie to live. That's good. Is the cast? Are our main cast growing on you? Is anyone still grating? It's a real journey, the first season.
Yeah, it is. I think it's really interesting, and I'm sure you guys are going to talk about this or have talked about this a lot. But the Sayid character I really enjoy because of the time and place of having a Iraqi Muslim character on a plane crash. I think that was that feels very cool of the moment, like to be touching on a really sort of complicated sort of story and that sort of thing. Also to make him so handsome, clever, wise, so handsome. I don't think he's Iraqi in real life, though, is he?
No, I don't think so.
No, but that's okay. He's got lovely hair. I'm fascinated by the Korean couple only because obviously we know Korea has gifted us with the 4B movement. And I'm wondering whether Lost was the birth of the Korean 4B movement.
Are you across this, Dan, the 4B movement?
So the 4B movement started in South Korea X amount of years ago. I am not an expert. I have not looked this up, so apologies. I probably should have planned this better. But the B's stand for Korean words. But essentially, it's women saying marrying men is awful and having children is hard work, and we're just not going to do it anymore. So there's been this huge movement of women basically saying it doesn't benefit me, it doesn't benefit us. I'm just not going to do it anymore. And there are massively dropping birth rates. I think last year there was like schools that could not fill their first grades. Like there is just been this massive drop off, and they're basically trying to have to encourage women to find a reason for them to get married and have children because it's like a phenomenon. And then that's
they're not encouraging men to be, more worthy or justifiable in getting together with.
No, that's too much hard work. But yeah, so essentially it's something that started in South Korea, but it's certainly a phrase that's permeated out. But the Koreans were on it early, and I think it was because of Sun. I think she was like, I'm dipping. So that was my thought. I was like, wow, this is probably inspired generation of Korean women to demand better than someone who steals a puppy and gives it to you as a gift.
We covered when we spoke about the pilot in the first episode, I talked about how overbearing Jin was and how overbearing Walt was and how overbearing Boone was. And it just seemed to be this thing that had to play out in the first. Everybody had to relax, like just to, you had to get over that sort of huge hump so that everyone could just stop focusing on that and focus on the bigger, like, how do we get off the island or wherever and sort of move on.
The first few episodes felt very big male energy imposing, big hero energy. And I think like the interesting thing with Jack is like Jack, I think, is a character that I don't think we really do that anymore. I know part of his backstory is that he's the hero. He wants to please people. He wants to make people proud. He wants to do the right thing. But I don't think we do characters that pure and perfect and wonderful anymore. And I kind of am glad we don't. Like, I know I've got seasons to go. I know that there is, I'm sure, more coming. But I was looking at him and thinking, oh, is this why Matthew Fox, I haven't seen much of him lately? Because I think it was very similar to what he did in Party of Five, that same sort of, patriarchal sort of
I guess it like a rock, or the dependable. I'm going to step in and
caring, smart, thoughtful planner. And I think that I don't, again, with the whole anti-hero thing that we've sort of been that sort of kicked off or was made really big, sort of with Breaking Bad, and then the things that have come after that. I don't know if that's the man we all want to watch on our. I'm enjoying it. I don't mean to say I dislike him, but I just don't know if that's if that fits on his resume anymore for him to get more of those.
We probably shouldn't say too much more about Jack at this
Ooh.
stage.
Oh, but both of us are grinning because it's so interesting, and it's so good to hear you give that take on that character.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's really and sorry, I've got to ask then. So you're coming full circle then on the other side of that Locke. Where are you at with the Locke character? Like there was something you're like, I think I'm not supposed to like him, but where are you at now?
I think like with Locke is what I found so interesting as someone who has only ever watched the first season twice, yeah. Is that he had the story that was the hardest to explain away with coincidence. Like everybody else, you could go, well, I guess maybe numbers are numbers, maybe numbers appear, or this or that, or who made the smoke, or the hatch is there from somebody, I guess. But the fact that he was somebody who was paralyzed and then landed on the island, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but from the first season, he's the only one that's like, well, that's magic. Like that's magic. So I think that's so therefore I feel like at this stage he has the biggest dog in the fight. Like he has the most investment, really, because he's the one who really doesn't really have much off the island that he really wants to go for. So I think that's how do I feel about him? I don't know. I still want them to get off the island. So and I still find him a bit domineering and a bit annoying. And also, why is he the colonel? But no, I think I'm more open to him now than I think I was when I started watching it. And then when he donked Saeed on the head, and I was like, now it makes more sense to me. I'm like, yeah, fair enough why he donked him on the head, I guess. I'm still not into it, but that's fine.
Much like with Jack, plenty more to come with Locke as well.
Okay.
I think it's safe to say.
Yep. Another character I wanted to ask you about is Kate, because she texted me and said, can't wait for Kate to speak to another woman on the island. I've got to tell you, as soon as you agreed to watch the show, I was still doing a bit of a rewatch, and it immediately changed how I was like, oh no, what have I done? Because I think we've got 6 seasons, and I don't think a single episode passes the Bechdel test. I forgot just how much everybody punches each other in the face just to resolve anything. You also said, can't wait to talk about how none of the women grow any body or facial hair. And I was like, well, we're going to have to just live in TV world, unfortunately.
Or the men, it's crazy. Like their facial stubble is exactly the same as when they arrived. Their hair length hasn't grown at all. They show Charlie getting a brief trim, but I'm like, you're not winning me over with a brief blunt scissored trim there. I think what's interesting is I will say Kate was speaking to Sun a lot before Sun revealed she spoke English. I haven't seen them had a conversation since then. So she was quite happy to talk to somebody as a bit of a brick wall situation. Yeah, I think like there's an ick factor to the female characters really only being there in relation to being love interests. Like you've got Shannon, who her brother loved her, and then now the guy she snitched on at the airport loves her. And then you've got Kate with this love triangle between the baddest boy that's ever bad boyed and the goodest boy that's ever good boyed. And then obviously Sun with her 4B domestic violence situation. And then that one woman whose husband was on the other end of the plane and she's waiting for him to come back. There's, and then you've got the virgin mother, of the Australian girl, Claire.
Well, good job.
Thank you. So yeah, there's the love triangle between Sawyer, Kate, and Jack. I'm done with it. I don't know if it's going to give me more or give me less, but it doesn't interest me. I think Sawyer is, again, I don't think we make characters so and of course there's more to him. Of course there is, but he's very black, and he's as black and black white as Jack is white and black white, from the everyone's got to cheeky old nickname, and everything he says is a little bit racist. I'm just like, okay, come on.
Yeah. That really stood out to me the second time around, and I'll say no more. But yeah, that trope that is so reliable with him with the nicknames, yes, can venture into some pretty nervy territory.
And just that he comes up with a new one every single time. I'm like,
he spends hours in the tent every night.
Yeah.
That's true. He has got nothing but time.
Yeah.
But
yeah. He's got all the stuff. Dan, have you got any quick fire questions for Fiona? Anything on your list?
Not really. I was mostly interested in how you felt about all the characters, but I think you've covered off most of them. Are there any outstanding mysteries or things that you're looking forward to having answered?
So,
other than the hatch, obviously.
Yeah, obviously the hatch. I'm invested in the hatch. I had also totally forgotten that Walt got kidnapped. So that was a real surprise to me. I was expecting some kind of sea monster on the the 1960s bleep bleep that they had on the boat. And then it wasn't. It was another boat. And I was like, what the fuck? And then they just stole the boy. So I wasn't expecting that. And obviously they set fire to the rafts. I don't know how far away they are. Like, is that the end of them? Or is it, again, like Game of Thrones, that gantry that just kept rolling and rolling? Are we going to have one of those scenarios? So I'm interested in that. I think I did text you, Chris, and I don't know if you're choosing to ignore me, but I asked if we ever talk about Shannon having asthma again, because that was like a big talking point. And then I think we still don't know who took the pumps, because that's a dick move. Someone's taken the puffers.
That does come back into play much later on. I'm not sure that's a major spoiler to say that point is referenced again.
Okay, well, that's all I asked for, just a reference. It's not a lot. I think the biggest difference between me right now watching it and me 20 years ago is because right now I have the cheat code. Like 20 years ago when I was watching it and I was disappointed, I had nobody to say, keep watching it, it's actually going to come good. Whereas now I have the benefit of not only you guys telling me, but, as I've been telling people, oh, I'm rewatching or I'm watching Lost. People have been going, oh, great. Like, oh, I think I might rewatch Lost. Like, it's like a cheat code. Like, I happen to know that this is probably going to work out for me. So, and then, like I said, these last couple of episodes, and I sort of slowed it down a little so I could be exactly up to the right spot to talk to you guys. I have actually found myself going, I want to know what happens next. I want to know what happens next. So I'm really excited to.
So that's it. So that's confirmation. Live on the podcast, the 20-year oath that is kind of technically still in place.
Technically.
Will be broken. You heard it here first. So that means that we should be able to get some season 2 thoughts from you.
Yeah. I'm a woman of no honor. No. The sort of last thing I wanted to note, which is relevant here, is something that you said here. Oh, that's what you said. Hopefully by the end of the season, I'll get at least one answer, or I swear I will never watch this show ever again. So there were 2 times this while watching it that you threatened to never watch the show ever again. So I'm so glad to hear. Because I messaged this to him like a week ago. Like during the second rewatch, I did message him to say, if I don't... No, look, did I get answers? I think so. I think again, it's just the cheating of knowing that I'm going to get some answers that has made it different from the 20-year-old me who maybe had drinks to drink or something else to do, But it surprises me now rewatching it, knowing how exciting the last sort of 2 to 3 episodes were, that I was able to walk away. Like, what a stubborn bitch. Like, I was really like, screw you, water cooler talk. I'm out of here. Like, now that I rewatched, I was like, wow, it really gave me a lot. But I guess like I have the privilege now of also just pressing play and watching the next episode, not waiting months and months and months, I suppose.
Well,
God bless the future.
Yeah, if there's nothing else, we should probably let you go ahead and do that. I can't wait to hear some the even newer thoughts as you start to venture into newer territory and what's in the hatch and all that kind of stuff. And the season 1's 25 episodes. It's the longest, right, of all the episodes.
The seasons do get shorter and shorter.
It was longer than I was expecting, if I was perfectly honest, guys. Now, Chris, I haven't been texting you my every thought because you have a partner and a child, and I'm often watching it very late at night. So if you would like to discuss it with Marina, and if I have your green light, I will text you more without care and consideration for your sleep cycles or feelings.
Anytime. I will often be rewatching it late at night. Marina will walk into the room, see Saeed, make a comment like yours earlier, and then leave the room. So you've got
Marina and I always connecting, always on the same page.
All right. We shall bid you bon voyage. Back to the beach.
Yeah.
Down the hatch.
Down the hatch.
Thank you, gentlemen. Lovely to speak to you both.
Enjoy. All right. Did this episode land in your personal top 10? Man of Science, Man of Faith?
No, unfortunately not. It is not in the top 10. Dan, yourself?
No, it's not in my top 10 either, as you may have realized when I gave it a bit of a snub a bit earlier.
Well, then if it's not in your top 10, that means we can, and it's certainly not your number 9, means it's time to reveal your number 9, Dan.
My number 9 is The Other 48 Days. So this is season 2, episode 7.
Yes.
And the IMDb description: 48 days ago, the tail section of Flight 815 crashes. The survivors struggle to live when some other people on their island continue to kidnap some of them. And do you want to hear my review of this one?
Please.
Okay, here's my recap. The regular cast take the week off as we take a closer look at what happened to those economy class fools who'd been at the back of the plane. Thankfully, we managed to tell their story in a single episode rather than a season and a quarter. The back half of the plane is led by Ana Lucia, who, apart from being the no-nonsense butt kicker we've seen in previous episodes, is also a world-class digger of holes. We see her lead her team through several attacks by the others, dig the aforementioned hole, torture an innocent man, and skewer a not-so-innocent one. She's assisted in this by a large, shirtless man who pretends to be mute for 40 days. No sensible reason was offered for his lack of chattiness, although we are led to believe it may have been a ploy to make Ana Lucia cry, ? Regardless, she still ends up shooting Shannon at the end of the episode. So we still have what personal counselors might describe as an outstanding concern.
Oh, bravo. Yeah, what a great episode. Like this is one that I will always think back to about, again, the show going, what are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? Yes, they are going to do it. Because if you don't think about it too hard and you don't dwell on Rose's insistence that her husband is still alive, you can just happily watch the show and go, holy shit, there was a tail section, which is what I did.
Yeah. I love that. Like this just general method of storytelling is one I love. I like having an established plot where we're all familiar with everything seems to be normal, and then suddenly you attack it from a different angle and you kind of see the whole story from some angle that you haven't seen before. It's just always appeals to me, that kind of storytelling structure. Like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, which is, Hamlet from the point of view of a couple of minor characters. Love that play. I just love all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. That's there was a few words you said there, and I understood none of them, but I did pick up on Hamlet, so I'll have to educate myself between episodes. But yes, it's this now. You've got Michael, Jin, and Sawyer have essentially washed ashore, right? And over the course of a couple of episodes.
Yes. So they've washed ashore in the second episode of the season. And this is kind of now we're getting the look of, what happened with the tail section all the way up to that. And then we kind of pick up as they pick them and we gather them. And it ends again with Ana Lucia shooting Shannon, which she'd done at the end of the previous episode as well. So this one also serves as a way to kind of keep that tension bubbling, just like, well, we could show you the ramifications of this, or we could show you the whole thing again from a different perspective, which is very cool.
Gives you that, I guess, that some empathy with Ana Lucia, right? Like you've now had time to understand the character, especially when Goodwin, who'd done such an amazing job of embedding himself in, and we'd had that established with Ethan, who was caught out much sooner. Goodwin, he was one of the core tailies.
He was the equivalent of a Charlie or a Saeed or something. He was very well trusted.
Yes, yeah. And then there's that fateful moment where she realizes, and they're sitting down, and I guess they're having that conversation, and
Yeah, they're peeling an apple and they're swapping a knife back and forth,
Yeah.
and we know he's a bad guy.
Yep.
We don't know whether she knows, but we soon learn that she knows as well. And then there's a big scuffle, and he ends up getting impaled. It's
Yes,
great.
yeah, and Kimberly Joseph is back, right? Like she's had the call because she's part of the
Yep.
tail section.
Yes, yep, yeah. She's there with the kids, and
And-
she's looking after the kids, and then she gets kidnapped along with the kids.
Yep.
Yeah, on one of the days, day 4 or 5 or something, they all
Yes.
disappear.
Yeah, yeah. Like when we're, I think one day we'll have a bigger conversation about the others and their motivations and were they good and were they bad, and because her and the kids, make it all the way. They're in the temple. By the time a lot of this is sort of said and done, being looked after and not being fought over.
Yeah.
Anna Lucia as a character. Like, do you know the story of her leaving the show? I shouldn't ask this question if I don't know the answer myself.
There are rumors that it was because she got busted with a drink driving thing, and they said no, well, we don't want you. That I think that's mostly been debunked. The stories keep changing. That there's another version of the story that she only ever signed on for one season anyway, so she was always going to be killed by the end of the second season. So it's all a bit mystery. It's most of the tailies disappear except for Bernard.
Yes.
And a lot of people kind of hold that against them, but I don't really care. I think they were, I enjoyed them for the time they were there, and I particularly enjoyed this particular episode. Yeah, it's just a really, really fun kind of alternate timeline of what might have happened to our heroes if they'd landed in a more dangerous area of the island.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments, which is not in this episode, which maybe holds it back for me a little bit, but when Bernard approaches Michael, like they've been through that whole trust thing, and then they're in one of the other Dharma stations.
Yes.
And Bernard approaches them and asks, is there a woman on the other side of the beach? Her name is Rose. And then you realize you make that connection. That's such a really, really touching moment. One of my favorite moments.
Yes, great. All right. So what was your number 9?
Number 9 is season 4, episode 7, Ji-yeon.
Yes, yeah.
So we are deep in who is the Oceanic Six territory. And I feel like this was the most effective way of kind of playing with that mystery. Okay, who makes it and who doesn't make it, given where they are on the island. And we see Sun is going into labor, and it's clearly a flash forward.
Yeah.
But then while we're back on the island, Jin and Sun are together. So we've got no reason to believe Jin isn't going to make it. So it's one of those great episodes. Again, I'll never forget the first time I saw it, completely falling for one of their kind of classic, end of episode twists where he's rushing around, he's trying to buy that panda bear while Sun is in the hospital screaming for her husband. And look, maybe a little bit on the nose in terms of misdirection, maybe a
little bit of a cheat, but it's worth it for the twist. Very good.
And just to go full circle here, she does go into labor while watching an episode of Expose. Should be noted.
There we go.
But yeah, Jin delivers.
Billy D. Williams will do strange things to women.
Jin delivers the bear, and that's when he says, "I've only been married for 2 months." And then when you realize, oh no, they're mucking us up again with another flashback. And we get Hurley coming to visit Sun. Again, we know that he's off the island. And they visit Jin's grave, which is really sad because we don't know how and why this is going to happen. I like to think that Hurley probably flew coach, even though they all have that golden ticket since sort of coming back. He definitely flew coach. Over on the freighter, we've also got like freighter happenings. And this is the thing that puts it over the line for me, that gets it into my top 10, is that it ends with the reveal of Johnson, the deckhand.
Kevin Johnson.
Yes, that Ben has been telling us that he's got a man on the inside, and plus we know that someone's been sabotaging the freighter.
Yes.
And again, I didn't know you could do this on television where an actor could leave a show and well over a season later just return, because you just assume that, they're done with it. That's how things go. So that also broke my brain the first time I saw.
And then they pull the same trick with Claire a bit later.
Yeah,
Claire disappears and comes back a couple seasons later.
Yep.
Great.
So I love the reveal of Michael. That's just fantastic. And couple of fun, I guess you could say, guest actors in this episode as well. If you remember the boat captain or the captain of the freighter, Captain Galt, Mr. Grant Bowler, another Aussie.
Yep.
Representing
one of the few.
One of the few. I was very curious to know whether this turned into anything for Grant. He's still busy. Still busy. He's still busy. He's had 3 films come out in the last 3 years. I want you to try and guess the IMDb rating of these 3 movies. Right. The first one was called Super Volcano. So that was in 2022. 2023.
Super Volcano 2?
No, it was actually called 20.0 Megaquake.
Oh, okay.
And then the movie that came out this year is called Ice Storm. Now he plays the same character in all 3 movies.
Wow, he likes his disasters.
I don't know who.
Do any of them crack 4? Any of them above 4?
No. We're in the 2s. So Super Volcano has a rating of 2.8, and then they just go down from there. Megaquake 2.4, Ice Storm a 2.3. So look, he's keeping busy. I'm sure he's standing in front of a green screen somewhere, pretending to be blown up by a super volcano. He did go on to he did make it a little bit. He was in a few episodes of True Blood. I think his name was Cooter or something. And a bunch.
I remember.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of True Blood and then lost interest.
Yeah, another show off to a strong start and a kind of a bit like, I remember Dexter was on at the same time.
Yeah.
Again, by season 5, thing was just on a treadmill. Ugly Betty, he was in a whole bunch of Ugly Betty episodes. So you could say,
Okay, so he's kept busy.
Yeah. So a little after Blue Heelers, he definitely had a few big roles there. And then also Regina is she is on the freighter. She's the one that she suicides by jumping into the water with the chains. And she, of course,
and she's Zoe Bell, right?
Yeah, Zoe Bell, who is incredibly famous and well accomplished stunt actor, but as well as appearing in a whole bunch of Tarantino films.
Death Proof.
Yeah, Death Proof is sort of like her main, like the first time she had an extended role with lots of speaking and everything, because I think is she doing that stunt on the hood of the car? She's strapped to the hood of the car. Incredible stuff. Crazy. Yeah, so she's in like Hateful Eight, Django, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So fun seeing her there, the Kiwis being represented. So there's my number 9 for me, Gideon. Stick in your memory, Dan, or
a great episode. As you say, the big twist of this is not a flash forward or not a flashback. That's both. It's both. Great twist.
Continuing to mess with us.
Great twist.
So we've continued to build out the list. Next week we're taking a trip to season 5.
Season 5 finale. The Incident, parts 1 and 2. So the double episode, the finale of season 5. And until then, we will speak to you next time.
Thank you for listening to Lost Within Lost. If you have any feedback on anything you've heard in this episode, or even if you just want to share some of your own favourite Lost memories, you can send us a note via email or pneumatic tube. If that happens to be working, just send it to lostwithinlostpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on the socials, both Twitter or X, whatever you prefer. Also on Blue Sky, at Lost Within Lost. Come and say hello, and thanks for listening.